Well, good afternoon. We're so grateful that you're here today. My name is Van Clements, and I have the privilege of pastoring Willamette Christian Center, where Isaac and his family were part of our church. But I'm really here because I'm his friend. And I think that's why you're here today. Now, normally on a day like this, I have a style about me. I usually wear a suit, and I'm very solemn and professional, but this is about Isaac today. And so our goal today is to have fun together. We won't be sacrilegious, but we'll be close, because that's how he was. That's how he lived his life, and he loved deeply and he loved strongly. And we're here to remember, we're here to reflect on our own lives, and we're here today to rejoice in the gift that he was to us as a community. It is a community effort here today. The churches of Willamette and Faith Center and many others are here to participate, and this family has been a part of this community for so long, and we have grieved with them, we have prayed with them, and today we are here to comfort and strengthen them today. So I'd love for us all to just begin this time with a collective sort of deep breath. Would you all just take one in? And then my wife hates it when I do stuff like this, but there's a reason we do this, because one of the things that Isaac said to us was, don't miss the moments. Enjoy each other. So would you, just before we get started here, look each other in the eye, smile at each other next to you, give somebody a high five, start a thumb war, do something just for a moment. We're so grateful that you're here. That's great. Fan, that feels good right there. I like that. That feels good. We're going to pray. Father, thank you for the joy of our hearts in the midst of the sorrow, in the midst of the challenge. You're present here, and we love you for that. So throughout this time together in this room and in the atrium room, as we eat and hang out and talk, we pray your presence would comfort us, and that Jesus, you would be glorified as you were in Isaac's life. We love you, we praise you, we minister to you today by our presence and by our attention. In Christ's name, amen. We begin this afternoon, with a wonderful tribute to Isaac's life, written by his sisters and narrated by his liver giver, Garrett Chun. A wonderful overview of his life that's for us today, but really is a great tribute to his life for the generation, his kids, as we move forward. So let's look at the life of Isaac Jackson. For the generation, his kids, as we move forward. So let's look at the life. For the generation, his kids, as we
in Reno, Nevada. At the time, Isaac Jackson was born on January 11th, 1980 in Reno, Nevada. At the time, he already had two older sisters, Lisa and Laura. 2 years later, Isaac's younger sister, Sarah, was born. Most of Isaac's early growing up was in Sacramento, California, where he enjoyed the California sun, playing baseball, watching the Oakland A's, throwing grapefruit into the neighbor's pool, and letting his sisters dress him up like a girl. Isaac always prayed for a little brother, and when he was 9 years old, his prayers were finally answered. In fact, at that point, he learned to be very careful what he prayed for. Zach was adopted into the family, quickly followed by Josh and Hannah Jermesia. In 1992, the family moved to Oregon. 5 years later, Ira, Tanisha, Moses, and Rihanna also joined the family. In 1999, the family was complete when Sam was born. Isaac was always a proud big brother. He prided himself in being a good example and friend, especially to his brothers and nephews. As a teenager, Isaac's life changed dramatically the day he noticed a beautiful girl with big blue eyes and a red jacket in the gym at Churchill High School. Apparently, she had noticed him too. Soon they started walking together every day to pick up her little sister from Kennedy Middle School. Isaac had decided at a young age that he didn't want to trade short-term gain for long-term glory, and he took his relationship with Erin slow. They didn't even start dating until his senior year in high school. In the meantime, Isaac and Erin enjoyed their high school years involved in the Faith Center youth group. Isaac's closest friends were Garrett, Tyler Nice, Milo Skinner, Nick Wade, Ben Langeberg, Kyle Chun, and Ethan Nelson. His life was filled with poker nights, frisbee golf, D groups, retreats, camps, late night Fridays, long bike rides with Erin and Nick, high school dances, and learning to seek and love God. After graduating Churchill, Isaac started college and began to put together his life plans. In June of 1999, he proposed to Erin. They were married on January 15, 2000, and in true Isaac fashion, the wedding date was strategically planned to get the most financial aid possible for their schooling year. Isaac's focus was now on college and his new family. On June 6, 2001, Isaac and Erin's first daughter, Nora Rose Jackson, was born. Isaac was so proud when he brought Nora out of the birthing room to show her off to his family. He was finally a dad. " 2002 was a big year for Isaac. He graduated from the University of Oregon and decided to attend law school. Also in 2002, Isaac's only son, Jonah Adrian Jackson, was born. Isaac gave Jonah the middle name Adrian after a boy he had met on a missions trip. The boy's situation in life had changed Isaac and had made him realize how he wanted to live and share the gospel with others. During this time, Isaac and Erin lived humbly at Westmoreland Student Housing, and Isaac worked as the emergency maintenance manager. At law school, Isaac met someone who would become one of his closest confidants, Dimitri Shohantaridis. In May of 2005, Isaac graduated from law school. After clerking at the Lane County Courthouse, Isaac got a job with Frohnmeyer Dettridge in Medford, Oregon. While working there, he formed a friendship with Clint Jones, who would later become his business partner. A few months after the move to Medford, Isaac and Erin had their third child, Clara Marie Jackson. Clara brought a lot of joy and laughter to Isaac with her spunk and her love for singing and dancing. The time in Medford was a special time of bonding with Erin's grandparents and extended family. Being away from the larger Jackson family gave Isaac's young family time to draw closer together. They missed their Eugene family, however, and in January of 2008, Isaac decided to step out and start his own law firm back in Eugene. Jackson Law was born. You may have heard the commercials.
I'm Isaac Jackson at Jackson Jones Law Office. At our office, we represent people who have lost everything because of someone else's bad judgment. We want to help you move on, but if we need to, we will stand up and we'll fight for you. Again, call me at Jackson Jones Law.
During this time, Isaac and Erin started attending church at Willamette Christian Center. While at Willamette, Isaac served with the middle school group and also went on 3 mission trips, 1 to Haiti and 2 to Cambodia. The second trip to Cambodia, Isaac's oldest daughter Nora and Erin's mom went as well. On December 29th, 2010, Isaac and Aaron brought their fourth child, Sarah Bailey Jackson, into the world. She was named after her two aunts. Sarah brought Isaac's sense of humor and silliness to the family daily. Over the next 4 years, Isaac worked hard at his business and worked even harder enjoying life. Days were filled with coaching his kids' soccer and basketball teams. Isaac also headed up his own friends and family soccer team, the Flying Monkeys. Every year, the Jackson family enjoyed frequent birthday celebrations, Thanksgiving football games, their weekly summer picnics, and family camping. Isaac became a legend at those camping trips with his stories and his crazy antics. He also tried to fit a motorcycle trip in every year. Aaron's family's memories include Bailey Christmas mornings, weekends at the cabin, trips to Medford and Disneyland, and Duck basketball and baseball games. Isaac loved Jeff and Nancy as if they were his own parents, and he worked very hard to join Jeff's Controlled Loiterers hunting group. Anyone who really knows Isaac would be just as hesitant as Jeff and his friends to put a gun in his hands. But it happened, and Isaac was proud the day he finally achieved that membership. In February 2014, Isaac was diagnosed with liver cancer. The next few months were a whirlwind as doctors tried to figure out the best way to treat him. The best option was a liver transplant, but doctors weren't sure if Isaac would be a good candidate. When Isaac was accepted, he felt that there was new hope. Many stepped forward to donate their liver, but because of our close relationship, the strict liver cleansing preparation, which consisted of consuming mass quantities of beet juice, I was chosen. In April, while Isaac was undergoing chemo and radiation, Isaac's friends came together and raised $30,000 to help support the liver transplant. In June of 2014, Isaac received 2/3 of my liver. Isaac came home about a month later, ready to take on life. Even though Aaron was a little hesitant, in August 2014, the family took a road trip through California, ending up at Disneyland. So 2 months after surgery, Isaac was riding Splash Mountain and Mad Hatter teacups with his kids in the Magic Kingdom. From that point on, every day was a gift to Isaac. He lived his life unafraid. He wrestled with God about everything, and he sought the truth. He spoke encouragement and life to those around him. He was more intentional with his time. He had faced death. He was different. Summer of 2015, Isaac took his family on a road trip of a lifetime across the country, visiting Yellowstone, Mount Rushmore, Niagara Falls, Scranton, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. Isaac did take a detour to the Mayo Clinic for a quick hernia surgery. Then, just to make things more interesting, they drove 36 hours non-stop back to Eugene. Road trip, #Isaac style. Life was beautiful. In April 2016, the doctors found that Isaac had another tumor. He quickly returned to the Mayo Clinic to receive radiation.
Go on.
The radiation was successful, and Isaac made it home in time for the birth of their miracle child, Emma Ray Hope Jackson, born on May 12, 2016. Emma's arrival brought new hope and another really good reason for Isaac to fight. In August, tests showed that the cancer had returned. This time, Isaac decided to take the trip to the Mayo Clinic alone. It was so hard for him to leave, but along the way, he visited some of his closest friends and family. In the time that he had alone, Isaac faced God yet again. He was challenged, comforted, tempted, encouraged, and raw. He chose God in those moments, not because he felt he had to, or because he owed it to God, not even because it was the right thing to do. He chose God in those moments because he could. He chose to face God, and he chose to love. While at the Mayo, doctors confirmed cancer. The next step was chemo, and over the next 4 months, Isaac endured. On the good days, Isaac spent time with the people he loved with joy, hope, and gratefulness. On February 22nd, Isaac's doctors confirmed that the chemo was not working and placed him on hospice. Isaac and Aaron faced this moment of truth together. They encouraged everyone around them to walk with them in hope and togetherness. Isaac fought one hell of a fight. And when Isaac's time was close, he was transferred to the Pete Moore Hospice House. He loved it there. His pain was controlled, and he was able to continue to speak encouragement and hope. He reminded those close to him that spring was coming, that the good days make the bad days worth it, and that life is beautiful. He was overheard saying that these were some of his best days. The time was sweet. Every day was hopeful. Every day was filled with grace. And every day was done together.
Yep. I'm good. Don't worry. Okay.
Applaud that, can we? Thank you very much. Wow. A special thanks to Neil Moyer for editing that video and for all the work, and Aaron letting your family be shared with us. We appreciate that. It's an honor for us today. There's probably dozens of us in here that have many stories to tell, and we'll be looking forward to hearing those. But a couple of folks are going to come and represent us. Josh Jackson, his brother, friend, confidant, mentee, mentor, and Tyler Nice. They're like Jonathan and David, I think. So let's hear from Josh first and then from Tyler. Come, guys.
Well, hi, I'm Josh. Isaac's my big brother. But you see, Isaac was far more than a big brother to me. He was a mentor, he was my hero, and a warm embrace anytime I needed it. With just a smile and a hug, he made me feel like I was on top of the world. That same goofy smile I tried to copy from ages 5 to 10 showed up in all my school pictures. He was a wordsmith, a history buff, and a zealous lover of his family. How do you describe a man like Isaac? I'd say it's pretty much impossible. I think we can all agree that Isaac was not a man of many words. He was a man of all words possible, all phrases, and a ton of stories crammed into any conversation you get the chance to have. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote this: "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people." Isaac was a man of ideas. A few of the main ideas he lived his life by were family and love, faith and hope, beauty and change. Family and love. Isaac was always up for having family around. Like that one time he let me work for him for a summer. He told me to go through a large binder of paper, highlighting anything that looked important. So me and my high school wisdom, I studied each page day after day, highlighting just about everything I could see. I can still remember, at the end of that summer, I asked him how that case turned out. He just smiled and said, "We decided to throw that one out." It's at times like that that remind me not to take life too seriously. Sometimes it's just about going on a journey with someone you love. It didn't matter the day or the time, he would go to whatever lengths it took to be together with the family and make sure we loved each other. He would wrestle with what it meant to really love and what God has called us to. Faith and hope. Isaac was a man of double or nothing. When I was young, we would go back and forth shooting hoops and betting money. I can remember at the end of one game, he owed me $80. And I can still remember going to Albertsons, who had a 4 for $1 special on candy bars, leaving that store with a receipt as tall as me, my best friend by my side, and 320 candy bars. It was a blast. And they say money can't buy happiness, maybe candy bars can. When it came to his faith and his hope in God, he seemed to also play a double or nothing game. He would risk being wrong and place everything he believed in before God to make sure that he was hearing him clearly. We'd go back and forth wrestling with our definitions of faith and hope and what those two powerful words meant in our lives. He stood on a faith so grounded and so strong, he was willing to take whatever journey God sent him on to understand his heart. Beauty and change. The lengths he would go to make sure that we had fun. Like lighting his guitar on fire while he was playing it at family camping. Or there's that time when he decided it'd be a good idea for us to take our younger brothers and our nephews on a makeshift raft across a lake. With a couple tie-downs and some giant logs and a tarp, we set sail. Ended up in the middle of the lake for hours without any food or water. And when God sent a boat, Isaac simply waved the man on and said, "We're good." Luckily, the guy came back 30 minutes later because we were still in the same spot. But look on the bright side. This is one of Isaac's many claimed phrases. He'd say it at honestly some of the strangest times. Like when we were leaving his 2-year checkup appointment at the Mayo and he just had heard the cancer had returned. There was no answer or words after he would say, "Look on the bright side," but rather just time where he challenged me to shift my perspective. Life can be a glass half full or half empty. It all depends on where you want to focus. Life is full of moments, highs and lows, hard times and good times. Isaac chose to see beauty in everything. He found beauty in the way our family bonded together in tough times. He found beauty in the crazy conversations we had about the complexities of the universe, or what real love was, or what do you know that you don't know you know. Highs and lows are meant to change us. Isaac's ask from God constantly in trying times was, "Please let this change me. I don't want to be healed if my life isn't going to be changed." It's the way that he wrestled with God and the words he spoke over our family that causes me to hope. These are just a few of the many ways that he loved and led our family. It's such a blessing to call him brother. He's so much more. Because of the life he lived, I will live forever changed. On behalf of our entire family, I just want to thank family and friends who've been praying and supporting and providing food throughout the season. It's meant the world to us. Please keep praying, keep loving, and always look on the bright side.
not going to need these, but allergies, am I right? To Isaac's unusually large family, and to all of Isaac's friends in the room and watching online, a sincere thank you for the invitation to share this morning, or this afternoon. I'll never forget one of my earliest memories of Isaac Jackson. He was probably 13 or 14 years old. His family had recently moved up to Oregon from California, and his house was right across the street from my house. It was a winter day, and 4 to 6 inches of snow had been deposited the night before. I was leaving my house to go play in the snow with some friends when I noticed Isaac halfway down his very long driveway. It was shoveled, the top half. Isaac was wearing a pair of soaking wet jeans rolled up to the knee, a t-shirt, and no socks, and no shoes. He was hopping from leg to leg, and when he saw me, he yelled out to me, "It's freezing out here!" I would observe Isaac have blatant disregard for his body many times after that day. I remember him diving into sharp gravel and mud and shredding his leg at one winter retreat. I remember my roommate and collegiate basketball player, Ryan Smith. We'd go play with basketball with Isaac, and he was afraid of Isaac. He vowed one point that he would never play basketball with Isaac again. Knees and elbows and arms would fly haphazardly and violently. One began to wonder if Isaac's pain receptors were functioning properly. Athletically, I think it would be most accurate to say that what Isaac lacked in coordination, he made up for in brute force and relentless competitiveness. I'd like to say on that snowy day that I knew that Isaac and I would be fast friends, but that is not the case. I thought he was a weirdo. And I was right, actually. I just didn't realize how close of a friendship I could develop with a weirdo. I also didn't initially realize that weird was just one small part of who Isaac was. I have fond memories of Isaac calling children over to him in the hopes of getting them to do some ridiculous thing. Nora, I remember when you were little, Nora, come here. And you'd waddle over to him and he'd be like, "Go do this thing." And all the adults would say, "Isaac, no." Okay. "Yeah, it's okay, Nora. Go do it. Isaac had an interesting relationship with dogs and birds. He was scared to death of them. Isaac had this uncanny way of sounding and looking like a monkey, as you saw in the video. He also had this cool thing that he'd do. When he'd get really excited, he'd start talking really loudly, and his arms would start waving around, and he'd start snapping. We had many strangers staring at us in coffee shops over the years. When he'd come over to my house, my grandparents lived at my house, and when he'd come over, he would get onto my grandparents' computer and change their password. My grandpa would be swearing at me to try to gain access to the computer, and I would call up Isaac, and I would say, "Isaac, what did you change the password to?" And he would never remember. Never. Isaac also had a funny relationship with names. He could never quite get a name right. Famously, Miyuki became Mookie. My favorite was Walter Brueggemann, who's a famous theologian who would become, that guy, Walty Boogeyman, right? He's just a little bit off. Am I right? He was always just a little bit off. Isaac's uniqueness masked his character to many. Many people, even some who had known Isaac for decades, only recently discovered his depth of character. As Isaac and his larger family faced a variety of challenges in these last few years, the gold of Isaac Jackson rose to the surface. The brilliance and courage transcended his quirkiness. He was still quirky, but his solid leadership and determination became his hallmark. And some of us were fortunate to discover the depth of Isaac's character in those early years. Ben and Ethan, Garrett and Kyle, Milo and Nick, and many others would forge a tight friendship in our younger days. We would go to youth group together, go to the river and throw rocks at each other. Sorry, Ben. I hit Ben in the head. That's another story. We would go to weekly Bible studies at Tom's house. We would go on annual summer camps and retreats, and our friendship was founded in prayer and struggle, growth, and the joviality that comes from being young. But my favorite was sitting on Isaac's deck late at night. I would walk up to his house across the street, and we would sit on his deck and look out over the city, and we would talk for hours. Often we needed to bring out blankets because it was so cold. And those nights we talked about so many things, but mostly we talked about God and his scriptures. We would pray together. I would remember vividly being jealous of Isaac's ability to talk and think about God. And I distinctly recall asking God one night that he might help me to learn how to talk and think about God just like Isaac. We would pray naive prayers together. These prayers like, God, would you show yourself to us? Or God, would you reveal who you really are to us? And like C.S. Lewis would describe Aslan, our God is not tame or domesticated. Praying to meet a lion is not always a safe prayer. As we grew older, our location changed from the deck to coffee shops. We continued to discuss God, but we added conversations about history, politics, economics, and sports. Isaac was well read, and it was not uncommon for us to be reading similar books at the same time. I brought up a passage of Plato last summer that I was rereading, and he proudly announced that he had just got done reading The Republic. Who reads The Republic? It's about the nerdiest thing ever. Okay, he particularly liked weird science fiction stories, books about futurism, and broad and diverse theology. He was moved by smart people. He liked counterintuitive writing style of Malcolm Gladwell, and he had a very strong, almost disturbing affection for the genius of Bill Belichick. If you ever had a conversation, it was weird. Okay. In our talks, I found Isaac to be enlightened, surprising, and challenging. A perfect example of this came about 6 years when I was studying hard to teach an AP U.S. history course that I'd never taught before. We were discussing Thomas Jefferson for writing and how he wrote the Declaration of Independence. He wrote, all men are created equal, but yet he had over his life hundreds of slaves. We were kind of discussing this topic, and it didn't take too long for Isaac to surprise me by saying, what do you think you and I are going to be judged for 200 years from now? He was just an interesting mind. He was very self-reflective. You know, he could dwell on the past, but he chose to examine himself, and I love that about him. We both provided leadership to small church groups at the same time. I to the college group at our church, Onyx House, and he to the middle school students at Willamette Christian Center. We would frequently meet to discuss our messages in our groups. Isaac's takes on the scriptures and his ability to find relationship between different areas of the Bible and application of those biblical principles was impressive. He would skip seamlessly between a passage of scripture, a perfect historical example, a literary reference, and then bounce to an economic instance, and then back to the biblical principle at hand. During that time, we would often co-write messages together and design games for him to play with his middle school group. I stole many points from Isaac, and I'm sure people think I'm smart just because of him. I can't fool you guys anymore. It's all Isaac. Of the many things that I'll take away from Isaac's life, 3 things stand out to me today, and I'll just share those with you before I'm done. The first is to love righteousness more than you love the appearance of righteousness. Too many of us worship at the idol of righteous appearance. Looking perfect on the outside means absolutely nothing when the inside only desires what is wicked. Fancy Christian words are empty and absolutely worthless when they're not sourced in a genuine pursuit of God's righteousness. The second thing I'll take away from Isaac is that the beautiful things in life are worth the pain. Isaac was no stranger to suffering. Isaac endured physical, mental, and spiritual pain. At the end, he said that it was all worth it. The joy of God's beauty and the blessing is worth every ounce of suffering and pain that we experience. And the last thing I want to share is that we are to hope always. On the good days, we should have hope, and on the bad days, we should have hope. Isaac's whole life was about finding and holding on to hope. And he was so good at it because I think he understood that we are not hoping for an easy, trouble-free life. If we hope for an easy, trouble-free life, then we will always be disappointed. Our hope will never be met. But when we hope to really know God, that's the kind of hope that will pull us through any sort of trial. I think of the book of Job often. This book tells a story of a good man who was wealthy in every sense of the word, wealth beyond monetary and materialistic comfort. He was truly blessed, and he lost everything. And in the midst of his despair, Job prayed a similar prayer that Isaac and I used to pray on his deck so many years ago. He wanted God to show up so he could talk to him. And God answered Job's prayer, but he did not answer the prayer the way that Job thought he would answer it. At the end of Isaac's life, Isaac would say that God answered his prayer, the prayer of his youth. God did reveal himself to Isaac. Isaac's view of God was stripped of cultural chaff that so often works its way into our theology and becomes a pollutant. It had purged itself of cowardice. It had abandoned the falsehood that God's will always looks like material comfort and ease. I believe that just like Job, God showed up and answered Isaac's prayer. And Isaac often said that he found God at the end of himself. Behold, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them and will be their God, and he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who is seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Thank you.
Over the last couple of years, I have probably hasn't been anybody that I have spoken more to about than Isaac. He became a mentor of mine. When we first got together, we were going to start running together. And he asked me, can you mentor me? And I'm like, well, why don't we just hang out and we'll see what happens along the way. And it was when he had his law offices down by the path. And I would go down there, and we were supposed to run, but we ended up talking, like Josh said. There was all words spoken. I did mostly the listening because I'm such a good listener. But we would sit in his office in our sweats. We were supposed to be sweating. We were not. We were just pontificating about life and about God. And he became a teacher for me. Even though I am his elder, he taught me stuff. And over this last year, the microscope of the last 3 years of our friendship, I've known him for about a decade and been hanging out in coffee shops with him for the last 10 years. But with all the stuff that kind of was a challenge in 2016, I thought, am I going to lose him through this process? And thanks be to God, that didn't happen. We called, we still connected. Coffee plant roaster, Starbucks, any place where they're serving coffee and it smells like roasted beans, he would find him there working. That's what he did. I'm very thankful to have been his pastor for this time. I'm very grateful, actually, that I wasn't his pastor during the teen years like Pastor Andy, because I think that's a way worse job. At least his prefrontal cortex was actually complete by the time I met him, so I'm just thankful for that. But there are two instances that I just want to draw out as we wrap up this time. In March of 2014, I asked Isaac if he'd be willing to share his story in an I Am Second-esque video style thing for our Easter services at Willamette. And he said, yes, absolutely. And he came to the church on a Thursday afternoon, actually about 11 o'clock in the morning, and my daughter Allison was doing the videotaping, and we set up in the main sanctuary and got everything clicked. You can go to YouTube and find it. It's a wonderful piece that he did. And it was just right after he got diagnosed and before he was heading off to the Mayo Clinic. And he spent like 4 hours talking, which he could do, yeah. He could do that. And we sat there and we wept and we laughed, and I interviewed him and we talked, and we sized that down to 7 minutes. I'll never forget one of the things he said that's changed my life so much recently. He was talking about that February and how he said, I was driving up to see my tumor on a picture in Seattle. And it hit me that I was not in control of my life. That whatever it was I thought I was doing well, that I had it all under wraps, it was a ruse. I didn't have any control whatsoever. And he said, then the next thought totally freaked me out. And that was, I never have been in control. And you always have been, God. Always, you have been in control. Always, even the times I thought I had it under control, it was still you. It was still you. During that time, he shared the story that Garrett brought up, the girls brought up in the opening video about Adrian. Isaac gave his heart to the Lord when he was 10 years of age. Grew up in a Christian home. The scripture was always around him. But Isaac was a question asker. He was a thinker, as Tyler has so eloquently stated today. And at this moment, he met Adrian, a young boy who was struggling. He was probably 11, 12 years of age. He had no family. And Isaac said in the video that day, he said, here's this little boy who comes to me at the end of the week and said, help me. And he says, all I could do was pray for him, for God to be in him, and pat him on the back. He said, this little boy didn't need a Bible verse. He needed a family. He needed a home. And he said, it caused me to think about salvation in a whole new way. God, what are you doing? What does it mean to be saved? Because this boy needs way more than I have to offer him. And from that moment, he changed the way he began, as Tyler mentioned, to focus his attention on loving kids just like Adrian. And it brought up those questions about salvation, about what it means. Those questions, he said to me, I still don't get it. He said, I remember that 3 weeks earlier going to a doctor's office, these are his very words, to see a picture of my tumor. And he says, there I was at the end of myself, looking over the divide. And at that very end of myself, there was peace, real peace, like real hope. And it made no sense. I didn't recognize that as me. It wasn't peace made by me. It wasn't peace manipulated by me. It wasn't hope manufactured by me. It was a gift, a true indwelling. Christ was in me. That he responded to that little boy who at 10 years of age gave his heart to Jesus and asked God to come in him. And he put himself in me. And he said what's beautiful about that was that it was pure. It wasn't affected by my hypocrisy or by my weaknesses or all the junk that I am. He said it was pure, a true gift. It was free. He says that moment, driving to Seattle, taught me something about salvation. And he said this, that's what salvation is. That's what we get. For little Adrian, for Isaac, for you, and for me, what we get is we get Jesus. That's what he does. He gives himself to us. These are his very words. He gives himself to us. That's it. It's pure. It's real. It's not affected by our doubts and fears. It's real. And it's awesome. That's what salvation is. It's Jesus. Not a set of words, not a set of platitudes to help you feel better. It's real hope in the midst of trials. It's a real future. It's real laughter. It's real life. That's what he brings to us. That was 2014. Fast forward almost 3 years to the day. I get one more of many moments where we spent way too much time talking. We would plan to meet for an hour. It would be 3. 2 other appointments would get pushed off my calendar because I just didn't want to stop thinking with him. But on this particular day, we'd set aside time, and he met me at Starbucks on West 7th. I didn't know it would be like our last hangout time. 3.5 hours of making fun of each other, laughing, talking about this moment, what this would be like. Talking about you and what you would learn and what you would ascertain from the pain that he had walked through. And at the end of it all, what he wanted is for you and I to know that it was worth it. That it was worth it. There is real hope for us. Isaac reminds me of a man in the Bible named Peter, who always got himself in trouble with his mouth and with his pontificated statements and big ideas. But I think he says some words today before the song comes. Let me read these words to you that I think apply to us greatly and I think would come from the very heart of God. In fact, as I'm thinking about this right now, I can imagine if Isaac had the ability to text me, he would probably start texting me about halfway through this verse and asking me questions. What do you really think about that? Because that's what he would do on Sunday mornings while I was preaching. And then we'd meet for coffee and I'd say, oh yeah, I shouldn't have said that, stuff like that. So here it is. 1 Peter chapter 1. Verse 3, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer griefs and all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes, even though refined by fire, may result in praise and glory and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy, for you're receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls. He was my friend. He taught me how to love Jesus. He taught me how to have hope. Because of him, we forge forward to tell people about who Jesus is and how he changes our lives and how he loves us through every circumstance and every situation. It's an honor to call him my friend. Amen.
I know how to let you leave, but how am I supposed to let you go? Now you stand in front of me, and all the rain is turning into snow. Can you tell me that you're real so I can really know? Everything I feel, I can finally show. 'Cause standing next to me, oh, the person I can be is finally here, and he won't back down at all. But I can't stop thinking how you just keep making sense of all that was broken before. And I I'm not broken anymore. I've seen the empty deep, and I dammed up the water flow. You're the touchstone, my complete. You're the ship that kept me afloat. Can you tell me that you're real so I can really know that everything I feel I can finally show? 'Cause standing next to me, oh, the person I can be is finally here, and he won't back down at all. But I can't stop